Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Thad Greenson, news editor, and Jennifer Fumiko-Cahill, arts and features editor at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, guys.
How you doing, Dave?
Hey, David, how you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you both for holding down the fort, and Matt, producer, for holding on the fort last week when I wasn't able to be here. But I'm, really looking forward to being back with you and diving into what you guys are covering.
Yeah, missed you and happy to have you back.
Well, thank you. Thad, why don't we just go for it? And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got on the cover this week, and also then we'll transition to kind of a little bit heavier topic that we're going to talk about at length today.
Yeah. Well, this week we have the first of kind of back-to-back election preview issues. So we have a pair of stories by digital editor Kimberly Weir diving into the races for to become the next 4th and 5th District Humboldt County supervisors. So she got together with the 4th District candidates, Mike Newman, Kim Burgell, and Natalie Arroyo, and got some background on them, and then asked them some questions about what she sees as the biggest issues facing Humboldt County and the 4th District specifically. And then she did the same up in the 5th with incumbent supervisor Steve Madrone and challenger Larry Doss. So we have that, which gives a good primer on the soups races, and then we have a story about myself that dives into the race to become the next clerk, recorder, and registrar of voters in Humboldt County.
That is awesome. Yeah, for folks who aren't out and about in our community, there are signs everywhere, and the ballots have dropped. I think a lot of people I've spoken with, including myself, we also have gotten our ballots in the mail. And the election day is the 7th, I believe. Is that right?
June 7th, absolutely.
7th. Just a couple weeks away. So good timing on this. Thank you guys for putting that all together. I know you don't want to go into it at length, but is there anything that stands out about your coverage, or should we all just go online or pick one up and just check it out?
Yeah, I guess I just quickly, put a little bit of a plug in for the clerk registrar story, and that it's an interesting race because there's no incumbent, and it's 3 folks from within that department vying for the role. And coming at it from very different angles. So I think that's interesting and worth taking a look at. And, especially on the registrar of voters side, as we've seen play out in kind of national politics, these are local positions that have wield a tremendous amount of power and sway over how elections are administered. So I think that's worth checking out. And then we also have a story looking at some stuff with the Auditor Controller's Office. Not really an election story, but one that touches on some elections stuff. So
that is the gift that keeps on giving, that story. I'll leave it at that for now.
Guess so.
Well, cool. Thank you. Like I said, I think it's worthy for anybody who is even remotely interested in knowing what's going on in the community leadership to recognize that it's upcoming, and it's worth it to stay informed on that.
Absolutely.
And so, speaking of staying informed and community leadership, I think today we're going to dedicate some time to another story that you're following. It has to do with Arcata City Council. Do you want to, take it away and tell us a little bit about what just transpired? And I guess last night you mentioned.
Yeah, so this was a late developing story. It happened after this edition of the Journal went to press. So if you want to read about it, you're going to have to visit the website and get the latest. But last night, the Arcata City Council held a special meeting to try to figure out what the path forward is with Council Member Brett Watson. And regular readers, listeners, and viewers will recall that Brett Watson kind of some stuff bubbled out of City Council chambers last October about him, and when the council voted to strip him of his mayorship and cast a no confidence vote in him, and all in reference to some kind of unspecified allegations that had come to light. So earlier this month, we figured out exactly what those were. A third-party investigative report into those allegations was made public through a Public Records Act request submitted by the Journal, and the city released the 29-page report and then 500 plus pages of supporting documentation concerning these allegations. And really, the investigation sustained allegations that Watson had abused his authority as a council member and engaged in a sustained prolonged pattern of harassment of a city employee. And the document anyway says that these charges are unchallenged, that there is tremendous supporting evidence of them. There's corroborating witnesses. And so, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but because Watson is an elected official, this situation gets handled much, much differently than it would with a city employee. A city employee who an investigation kind of sustained these types of findings of workplace harassment would be immediately disciplined, would be at a minimum probably suspended, have access and privileges revoked, and most likely, honestly, be fired with cause. Now, because Watson's elected and the city of Arcata does not have an impeachment mechanism in its municipal code, their options are really limited. They can't force Watson to resign. They can't remove him from office. They can kind of publicly reprimand him, as they did with the no confidence vote, and then they can do some other potential actions to protect city staff and kind of limit his contact with city staff. And so that's what last night's meeting was about. An employment law attorney laid out a variety of options for the council to follow. And I think it's also worth noting that this was the kind of the first full public vetting of the report and its findings, or I should say, I guess, discussion. They've been written about before, but this is the first time for the community to gather in council chambers and respond. And so there's a tremendous outpouring at public comment. About almost 24 people addressed the council, all of them to a single person, urging Watson to resign, and some of them presenting the council with letters that had been signed by many supporting people. One group provided a letter calling on Watson to resign that was signed by more than 50 women who live, work, or recreate in Arcata. So it was a pretty powerful showing of displeasure with the findings of the report.
So you'd mentioned this is the first time that the public has actually gotten to sort of air their grievances in response to the report findings, and that it was almost universally trying to express that he ought to resign, but his response was not so much, right? So can you tell us a little bit about kind of what he said in defense, or in response rather, and then kind of what the expectation is, how the city council can respond to the anticipation that he won't resign?
Yeah, definitely. So his response was fully defiant. He not only disputed the findings of the report and claimed that city employees had lied about his conduct, but he also said that he in fact is the victim of the situation, that he has been harassed by city employees. And is being scapegoated, and he didn't use these terms, but kind of some grand conspiracy to take away his power and punish him for standing up to city staff. So he said there's zero chance of him resigning. He started his comments that way, and then badgered city staff a little bit about some of the actions that were taken, the letter that was sent to him advising him of the report's findings, some stuff like that. And then really, wanted to present, quote unquote, his side of the story. And so he walked kind of viewers or listeners through certain aspects of the report and disputed its claims and kind of gave his alternate version of some of the events that were cast, and really kind of came back along the same lines as a statement he issued, I think it was Monday, that said, again, not only is he innocent, not only has he never harassed anybody in his life, not only is he kind of being unfairly targeted, but that this relationship with the city staff member was 100% consensual, that she encouraged it, she initiated parts of it, and during his comments last night, he actually cherry picked certain text messages. There, as part of the investigative report, there's, as I said, there's I think like 400 plus pages of text messages between he and the staffer, and he cherry picked some of them out, saying, on page 417, she says that I'm a good guy. And on X page, she says she's looking forward to seeing me. On X page, she says she enjoyed the walk. And, I didn't get to go too deep down that rabbit hole in my reporting last night, although I think I make a couple references to it. But, I've gone back and looked at some of the examples he cited, and he's, really pulling them out of context. And so, what the text messages as a whole, the picture they paint of Councilmember Watson is somebody who, plainly suffering, severe mental health issues, severe depression, severe anxiety, as well as some substance use issues, and while going through, very difficult periods in his life, including marital problems and the death of his father. And so, some of these responses from the city employee that he's plucked out are in response to text messages where he's saying things, talking about how depressed he is and how, he doesn't know if he'll be able to get up in the morning, and he doesn't know if he has the will to go on. And, she, again, I'm paraphrasing, but is kind of responding by, it'll be okay. You're a good guy. You're trying to do good. Tomorrow will be better. I look forward to seeing you. Those types of things. But they're really taken very, very far out of context.
So this is all obviously very heavy, very personal, but also very legal and in nature. And this is a employee-employer relationship, power imbalance. Can you speak a little bit to that? Basically, I don't want to lead you in any way, but it seems like there's some missing. There was some, like, his position, his opinion, his defense is kind of not addressing that nature of the problem.
Absolutely. I think throughout all of his comments, something that he seems, I think as you intoned, like very oblivious to is the power imbalance of an employer-employee relationship. And, he is only one of this employee's 5 bosses, because she is answerable to the entire city council, but she is one of his 5 bosses. And he seems to be totally oblivious to the boundaries that should be at play there, especially in a public employment setting. But when you read through the text messages, he's talking to her about everything from marital problems to the medications he's taking, to his visits with his therapist, to, again, his deep depression. And these are whether they take place in work hours or outside of work hours, these are conversations that seem wholly inappropriate for a boss to be having with an employee. And he just really didn't seem to grasp that, or, as you intoned, the power dynamic at play in this relationship. And that maybe because of that boss-employee nature of the relationship, that the employee didn't always feel comfortable saying, stop texting me, stop calling me. I can't have these conversations with you. This is inappropriate. And, a number of speakers at the meeting, I think, really pointed that out and spoke to that, essentially when there's a, acquiescence in a relationship where there's a power imbalance does not equal consent. It's not the same thing.
So one quote, I don't want to steal your thunder or anything, like, not that that's appropriate metaphor, but one of the quotes that stood out to me the most was why I said I thought there was some disconnect or just an lack of awareness, was that it said that he basically said something like, hey, look, she baked me cookies, like that. Oh, see, we're friends, and it's different when you're friends. That kind of, can you speak to that a little bit? I see Jennifer wanting to.
Every story is a food story, Thad.
Yeah, he, and again, when kind of talking about how his, at least his argument that this employee initiated some of the conversations or was welcoming of the relationship, as a evidence of that, he says she baked me cookies. And one of the speakers, actually, Jessica Silva, who's a contributor to the Journal, also was not there in that capacity. Said that baked cookies does not equal consent, or something to that extent, and she's absolutely right.
I think I asked you like two-part question before, and then obviously you didn't, you covered the first part. The second part is like, what next, what then? So what's the city council like? How did the rest of the meeting go after the airing of the response to the report?
Yeah, so the council briefly considered a censure of him, which they would have to come back and have another public hearing. And a censure is essentially just an official rebuke from the council. It doesn't change anything. It just is an official vote of displeasure in his actions or disapproval of his actions. And the council, decided that would just be an opportunity for him to take the stage again and talk about the investigation again. And they really didn't want to kind of, quote, give the issue any more oxygen. So they opted not to do that. They took a handful of actions last night to limit his access to city employees. And so they voted to prohibit him from having any contact with city employees outside of city council meetings, to strip him of all his committee assignments on behalf of the city, and to direct staff to pursue a workplace violence restraining order against him, which would have to go through a court process, and then to limit not just his but all council members' access to the staff portions of City Hall. So they viewed those kind of as protective measures that they're taking. And then there was some brief discussion of what it would take to recall him from office. City Attorney Nancy Diamond provided a brief report on that front, explaining that to qualify a recall for the ballot, somebody would need to get signatures from 12% of the number of voters who voted in the last general election at Arcata, which is a steep number. Those would have to go through a verification process, and then it would be set for a special election. And basically, she said, there's just not time to do that before November when he's up for re-election anyway. So it seems like ultimately, if Watson maintains his stance that he is not going to resign, that this will either end in him not seeking re-election or be up for voters to decide in November.
So that's where we stand now. The next 5 to 5.5 months or 6 months, whatever the number is, the city's going to take certain steps, but the reality is that it'll probably come down to voters deciding at the ballot box.
That seems where it's headed. It's certainly not going to rule out Councilmember Watson having a change of heart and stepping down, which I think would, in many ways, allow the city to refocus on the issues of governing. But he doesn't seem inclined to do that right now.
Well, Thad, thank you so much for your coverage. Timely, very timely. This just happened last night coverage. We appreciate your insights, and I'm sure you'll continue to follow as things develop.
Yeah, thanks, David.
How about you, Jen? I know we took up a little more time than normal. Why don't you clue us in on what's going on the Arts and Features beat this week?
Well, before we move on to the Arts and Features end of the paper, I just want to shout out there to Mrs. Claus. I've been leaving your husband cookies for like 100 years, but I'm not moving in on him. No need to take your earrings off, honey.
Okay.
So this is a good season for birders, and Sarah Hobart has taken out her binoculars and shared some wonderful pictures with us of birds that are in the area now. So what I really enjoy, one of the things I really enjoy about Sarah's writing is that she is inviting people to, as newbies to bird, and also reminding people, I think, who haven't done it in a while. It's a very unintimidating invitation to participate in this. And we got birds up here. So
totally.
She is going through all the different birds that are here, and she confesses that, which made me feel better. I just thought that all birders, instinctively, they could identify everything easily. They knew all the bird songs. I thought they were all, but she was saying she has to relearn the bird songs every year because there's too many to remember. And, but it's kind of wonderful. She was talking about this great cacophony that we have in the spring because birds are coming from out of the area. Some of them are here all the time, but in the paper and online, she's got some really beautiful pictures of some birds you should look out for. And it's just very cool. And these are like backyard birds. You don't have to be traveling to cliff tops. You can just, these are the birds that will come to your house if you have the right trees and whatnot. So it's kind of wonderful.
You gotta love the bird songs because we don't always have that. I mean, it's definitely that time of year it's noticeable.
Yeah, it's lovely. And, watch your cats. If you've got outdoor cats, try to maybe consider bringing them in a little bit. There's a lot of birder versus house cat drama to be had because of the eating of songbirds. Or the killing and leaving it in your shoe, whatever.
Sylvester Tweety, you got the feathers flying out.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
I was actually just real quick. I was out last week and I saw several people out there with binoculars and really cool, like obviously expensive camera equipment. So we have the birding community out here.
It's the season. Enjoy it.
Yep.
I also have this week a satirical column on because of the recent Supreme Court memo leak about basically trashing Roe v. Wade and once again plunging American women into a world of illegal abortions that will still continue but won't be safe, won't be legal, and in the case of Texas, for example, will involve your neighbors claiming bounty on narking on you for basic health care that could be, in fact, life-saving. And some of the trigger laws that are in the wings waiting to be put into effect once Roe's gone, if Roe goes, that in some cases, we have a lot of legislators right now, a lot of particularly Republican legislators who are looking at removing things like exceptions for rape and incest and looking for, reasons to not allow even abortions for pregnancies that threaten the mother's life. And so I thought to myself, after having, we had a great Summer of Fun issue, and there were all these cool camps and everything. And I thought, what would be the most helpful camp for this generation of kids growing up with uteruses that are now like basically a giant red target? And I thought, trash fire girls. They're like campfire girls, but for the trash fire of our current landscape. And so they earn badges on things that will help them to survive and resist a government that really just wants to destroy their bodily autonomy.
That's a trip. That is a trip.
Actually, my favorite thing about it, though, is something I didn't do, which is Rory Hubbard, who's one of our graphic designers in the production department, did the most amazing Girl Scout patch of a Molotov cocktail.
Oh.
For the story. And I am now putting out feelers to see who can actually make me this thing. I'm starting to think about all the different patches I have already earned, and you may have already earned.
You got to decorate your jean jacket with your subversion.
Right? One for yelling at a senator in an airport or something. That would be great. I got room. I'll make a sash.
It gives new meaning to badge of honor. Badge of honor. I actually have my old Boy Scout sash, in my old storage stuff, and there's space on there for some of these. So let me know if you end up getting some subversion patches.
Absolutely. How far up did you make it? Up the Boy Scout
Star. Yeah, I was distracted early, so I didn't make Life and I didn't make Eagle. I left at Star. Yeah.
Respectable.
Yeah. I liked the camping and I didn't like the work, I guess is what it came down to. The fun side.
Trash fire girls might be for you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is I do enough camping. We should try to implement at least some aspect of it because the snark and the satire. That's how we cope. I think that I just had this conversation. Actually, I probably had it multiple times recently. That Saturday Night Live coverage of the Saturday Night Live coverage was just hysterical. Where just if we can't laugh about it, then it's a lot harder to cope. So I just think we appreciate your contributions to our sanity.
Well, I'm at least hoping that people will at least, have a chuckle and maybe think about ways to talk to their kids about the laws that are affecting them, including child marriage laws and things like that. It's information is power is what they keep telling me.
Totally. Well, on that note, I definitely encourage people to check it out because it is hysterical and it helps the cause. So Thad and Jen, that's all the time we have this week. Thank you so much for joining us. This was really cool.
Thanks David.
All right. Well, North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up. Stay informed. Also available 24/7 online. We really appreciate what their contributions to keeping us informed. It's necessary and essential. So until next time, everybody, take care.